We all make dumb decisions in life, but in this case, I was stupid, very stupid. I arranged to meet a guy off Tinder, but because of my heightened anxiety about driving, I arranged for him to come pick me up outside my place. I had been talking to him for a few weeks at least, but that is not redeemable, and I know that. The choice I made on this day could have ended me, but thankfully, I'm still around to tell the tale. The guy picked me up in his car and told me he planned to take us out for sushi. I love sushi, so I thought it was great. He put in the name of the restaurant into his GPS and we were off, making pleasant conversation on the way there until I started seeing woods when I looked out my window. I felt very confused. We were supposed to be going into town, not into the wilderness in the middle of nowhere. So fear hit me hard then. He said, "I swear the GPS is taking me through here. I didn't choose this path. Please, just get us back to town," I said. My eyes were wide and I must have looked like a deer in headlights. His face was really apprehensive, so he must have known that I was scared completely. Oh my god, I thought to myself. I should have just conquered my anxiety about driving and met him somewhere public. Or better yet, not met with this guy at all. What was I thinking? I'm going to get killed here in these woods. I tried checking my phone to see if I could assist him with the GPS, and that's when he said those spine-chilling words. "There's no signal out here." I remember just thinking to myself, trying to look calm. Don't let him think you suspect that he's onto something. But man, did I feel terrified. The tips of my fingers were cold while I was simultaneously sweating. If he was going to kill me, part of me wanted him to get it over with so I wouldn't be left in anticipation. His forehead was sweating and he kept saying, "I swear that I'm not doing this. I'm trying to get us back en route to the sushi place." I said, "I don't care about sushi anymore. Get us to a gas station, anywhere with people at this point." He said, "I don't have a shovel or a weapon in my trunk or anything if that's what you're thinking," which did a little to calm my nerves. We finally reached the restaurant after what felt like an eternity. I had never been so scared in my life. I didn't have much of an appetite and I was physically trembling when we had arrived. But I figured he didn't kill me when he had the chance, so I guess it was safe now to continue with our date. I already planned on taking an Uber home because I didn't want to go through that experience again. I was shot out of my mind when he then asked, "So, when do you think we'll have sex?" I nearly choked on my food. What? I don't know where this was coming from, and I don't know how he could ask me something like this now on a first date, when he literally saw me as pale as a ghost just moments ago. You know, like how long will you make me wait for sex? A day, a week, a month? I stared at him dumbfounded. I couldn't respond because I was utterly speechless in that moment. "Well, I can't wait a whole month, I'm telling you that now," he said. I didn't say anything and the rest of the date was insanely awkward. I said goodbye as I took my Uber home, and only seconds after my driver had pulled out of the restaurant parking lot, he texted me to say that he doesn't think it'll work out with me because he needs a girl with a higher libido. I didn't argue, I just texted back a simple, "Okay," ready to be done with this man. When the Uber driver drove me home, he did not take me through the wilderness pathway of a potential murder site. He took me home through suburbs with other cars' lights and the sweetest scene to my immense relief. I couldn't help but wonder why my date had to take me through an hour drive through the wilderness to get to the restaurant, but it only took the Uber driver 15 minutes to get me home from the same location. The whole thing was chilling. I don't know if my date planned on anything sinister, or if it was an honest mistake, but I'm glad that I made it out alive. I learned a tough lesson that night, one that I should have already known but that I foolishly ignored for some reason. Don't let strangers from a dating app pick you up in one of their cars. When I was about 24, I was always busy with work and I lived in a small historic town. So, needless to say, I didn't get out much, which is why I was so excited when my 30-something cousin came up from Fresno to visit. I was also excited when she wanted to go out to check out the scene on the first night that she had stayed with me. As it turns out, she was a drinker, so we headed out to hit up the few small bars in my town. We only ended up finding one bar that was kind of happening. It had a pool table, plus it allowed smoking inside, so we were sold. I decided to sit at the bar and my cousin headed off to play pool with some guys. As I'm sitting at the bar sipping my drink and checking my phone, I get a tap on my shoulder. I turn to see an older gentleman, whom I didn't recognize right away. Seeing my puzzled look, he exclaims, "It's me, Cody's dad." I then instantly realized that he's the father of the boy that I had dated in like the 8th grade, when I was about 14. His dad seemed nice enough, but I did remember that he was a pretty stern character back then. Sometimes, as a punishment for his son, he would have him dig trenches even in the summertime, in the hard-pan rocky ground. I could even remember hanging out at his house back in the day, and just getting a bad feeling about his dad. Though I never experienced anything around his dad that would justify that feeling. So of course, I was surprised that he even recognized me at all those years later. He bought me a drink and we started catching up a little. As we're talking, my cousin comes over to check in with me, upon seeing a much older man at the bar speaking with me. Eventually, he suggested that we go outside to smoke since the bar was getting pretty smoky. Once we were outside though, I realized that we were pretty much alone. This was fine, I figured, since he was always one of my distant neighbors that I had known off and on over the years, but I figured wrong. I began to understand that as he started asking me more personal questions, he started asking me about whether or not I had a boyfriend, or if I would ever consider dating an older guy. I started getting uncomfortable, so I suggested that we go back in where it was a bit warmer. But again, after a few minutes, he wanted to go back outside. At that point though, I was already trying to blow him off politely. My cousin was seeing all of this since she was walking over again to check in with me. She gave me a sort of a warning look before turning and walking back to her game of pool. As the night progressed, he continued to try and get me to go outside with him. This time though, he wanted to go through to his truck. Finally, he grabbed my arm and just tried pulling me outside with him. Thank God for my cousin, he seemed to come out of nowhere, and she grabbed my other arm yelling, "Get off," to him. He immediately backed right off and disappeared into the small crowd, toward the back exit. For the rest of that night, we enjoyed ourselves and had some much-needed fun. It wasn't until about 6 months later that I heard a horrifying story about him from another neighbor. I was told that he was in prison for life. Apparently, he had been stalking and watching his soon-to-be ex-wife at their former home for months. Eventually, he had decided to straight-up kidnap her, tying her up and gagging her. He then put her in his truck or backseat and drove her down towards Mexico. In LA, he decided they should stop for the night, as it was about an 8-hour drive from our hometown. All night on that stay, he repeatedly did awful things to her. He had apparently told her that he was taking her to Mexico to finish her off. He had been treating her that way for years. I knew upon hearing that my bad feeling as a kid was justified. I'm now just getting chills writing this part. Somehow though, she had managed to escape his brutal attack that night. He was arrested pretty quick after that. So Ken, who tried to get me alone outside the bar that night to do God knows what, I hope you rot in prison. I need help breaking this down, and I need to feel like I'm not crazy. I'm a court clerk and I work for my local courthouse. I work in the clerk of courts, both in the office and in court, split about half-time wise. On Friday, I was in the office at my desk. I'll also assist with customers who come into our office who have questions on certain types of fillings. I am the backup coverage specifically for our records window. In my state, we are considered public records. Anyone can come in and request copies from any case unless it is juvenile, confidential, or sealed by the court. This is really important to the whole story. I was asked to cover the records desk from 4 to 4:30 last Friday, so our records clerk could leave a little early. No problem. I have no issues helping out when I can. Around 4:15, we had a frequent flyer, as we have so dubbed them. This man comes in frequently to get copies out of his case. I should really note the way my office is set up. It is a bit important. We are set up kind of like the DMV. You have to come into the main entrance of security, go down a long hallway and it opens to a lobby. There are elevators straight ahead. The DA's office is to the left and the COC is to the right. You have to open a separate set of doors into our little lobby. There is a counter with windows and it is in L shape. If I can figure out how to attach a drawing, I will. The records window is around the corner, tucked in the back. And there are also 3 public terminals where any member of the public can use to research cases in my county. So, back to the man. We'll call him Joe. Joe has an open family case. He comes in probably once a week to get copies out of his family case, or I don't know what the heck he's doing. It's really none of my business. He came up to my window somewhere around 4:15 to 4:20. Said that he requested some documents. When documents are requested from the public terminals, they go to a queue, which I then go into and select them to print. I went into the queue, glanced at the documents and asked, "Did you have 11 pages?" He said yes, so I selected and I printed. I wrote him a little slip out with the number of copies and his total owed. I gave him the slip, directed him to go back to window 4 to 5, that's the cashier's, for payment, and I would meet him up there. I went to grab the copies off the printer, which jammed, messed with that for a minute, and counted the pages and took them to the cashier. I then went back to my counter and helped the next person in line. The next customer was easy. Her records were prepaid and printed. After the second customer, it was after 4:25 p.m. My coworker, work wife, we'll call her Lynn, asked me if I wanted to go thrifting for clothes at Plato's Closet after work, and my answer was, heck yes, let's go. Right as we were discussing this, I'm in the view of the records window, but not at it. I saw that Joe had returned to the counter. I went up to the counter and asked how I could help him, and he stated, "You must be new." I'm not new. I've been at my job for almost 4 years and in the legal field for almost 10. I replied, "Well, no, I'm not, but how can I help you?" He then made a comment about a paperweight that I was using. It was a gift from my niece, a painted rock from a 3-year-old. "Well, that's a fancy paperweight you have there." "Sir, what can I do for you?" "You gave me the wrong case." "No, sir, I printed off what was in the queue. So you don't need these 4 pages." I tossed the 4 pages and then adjusted a slip. 7 pages in total, and I sent them back to the cashier. At this point, it's 4:30, it's a Friday, and we're closed. I left and headed to Plato's Closet. It took me about 15 minutes to drive over there, and I sat in my car for a few minutes and then went inside. I had beat Lynn there, and I started browsing. She came in a couple of minutes later, stating that she got coffee at a train. So we started shopping and chatting. For some reason, I looked at the door when it opened, and there was Joe. Now I knew it was Joe because he wears that dumb sock monkey hat. I saw him and got Lynn's attention. Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" So I pulled Lynn into an aisle that we ducked down. She's short and I'm tall and I wear heels a lot. I could watch his dumb hat around the store. He immediately looked to the back of the store. He looked like he was rubbernecking the whole store. So he goes to the back, grabs a pair of shoes, and glances at them and continues rubbernecking. I continued to watch him as he moved. We moved opposite. We were legitimately hiding behind clothing racks. He moved around the perimeter of the store, continuing to rubberneck, looking for something or someone. So he leaves and we freak out. We check the parking lot to make sure that he's gone. We try and shake it off and chalk it up to a coincidence. And then I realized that we were talking about it, literally in front of him. And Lynn, she's not quiet. She gets scolded on a weekly basis for her loud, carrying voice. I told the cashiers what had happened, and we ended up leaving like an hour later. The next day I felt so uneasy about it. I called my boss and told her what happened and told her that I was going to call the cops. I called the non-emergency number and left a message with a dispatch. I got a call from an officer a few hours later, and I explained what happened. He said to get Joe's name. At this point, I recognized him, but I didn't know Joe's name offhand. He told me that he would call me back on Wednesday when he was back on duty. I got Joe's name and called the officer back on Monday and left a voicemail. Monday was fine. Tuesday I was out of the office, but Wednesday, Joe came back Wednesday. He came at 4:20 to file documents into his case. He took 20 minutes to file 2 affidavits and a motion. Should have been like a minute. 2 because he needed something notarized. He left and I had a bad feeling. I called the officer and told him what happened, and the officer said that if he comes back Thursday to call, they would come down and talk to him. The PD is across the street from the courthouse. Thursday rolls around, no Joe, until 4:25. He beelined it through the computer in the corner. I messaged my boss. We had already put into place a safety plan. The sheriff's deputies who work security were notified. 3 deputies followed him into my office. I called the PD and 2 officers came down and they questioned him. He admitted to being at Plato's Closet. He was shopping for his 2 young daughters, 9 and 11. They don't fit into clothes at Plato's yet. Plato's has a sister store, Once Upon a Child. Those kids don't really fit there either. So he had a receipt in his car for Once Upon a Child for 5:07 p.m. He denied hearing my conversation with Lynn. Going to Plato's after work, he stated that he left my office at 4:15 and took his children shopping for clothes. He didn't have any kids with him at the courthouse or at Plato's. He also asked the officer immediately and unprompted, "Did she call you?" He also stated that he believed his ex-wife was setting him up. So, because my office is a public office, and he has made arguably legitimate reasons to come into my office, there's nothing that the officers can do. They issued him an oral warning and put him on standby. The kicker is he could opt into his case electronically, but made a big deal about not being able to opt in a few months ago. We told him that if he's having issues to call the court support line and they would be able to remedy the situation. But instead, he chooses to come in and pay $1.25 a page instead of a one-time $20 fee, which apparently he's also paid that too. If you weren't already freaked out, last year his roommate filed a restraining order against him, followed by his roommate's girlfriend alleging sexual harassment. I won't go into details. Let's just say it's a little bit more than messy. He's also filing extremely high-level types of documents for representing himself. Update. I was in court all day. I'd come down to my desk around 4:05. He came in at about 4:10. I left while he was still at my office. What am I supposed to do? The officers obviously can't do anything else. I need another incident outside of my office to file a restraining order. I've ordered home security. I've signed up for self-defense classes. I'm purchasing mace and looking into handguns. I don't know what else to do.